eliminate stockouts and scale with confidence. Erica, please go ahead and kick off the conversation.
Amazing. Well, good to see you guys. Thank you so much, Julia. And thanks also for that awesome panel right in front of us. It was super fun to hear from a fellow Austin brand. My company is also based in Austin, and amazing insights on sustainability. We're so glad you guys are doing what you do. Truly important. So my name is Erica Kraus. I lead brand and community at 8Fig. 8Fig is a funding and planning platform that helps e-commerce brands optimize their cash flow across their entire supply chain and radically scale. Our vision is to propel 100,000 e-commerce brands to 8 figures and beyond in the next several years. So we're really excited to be with you guys today. We're thrilled to learn about what you're doing. So we do encourage you to drop questions in the chat and let us know more about yourself as well, and how we can possibly support you through any insights. As Julia said, we are going to talk about eliminating stockouts and scaling with confidence. I wanted to tell you just a little bit about us so you know why we would even talk about it. So our team likes to refer to ourselves as supply chain geeks. While one of our primary functions is to make sure that rising brands are well-resourced with growth capital by funding them. Our background's actually in supply chain, and it's no secret that this year has been extraordinarily dynamic for e-commerce sellers. Demand is up, which is amazing, but logistics and marketing disruptions are constant. And so we want to talk about how to get ahead of that, how to eliminate stockouts, as we know that they can be detrimental to your brand, and scale is radically as you can. So in an environment like this, there is a demand on sellers to be smarter and scrappier than ever. And it takes a lot of boldness and a lot of courage to rise with the demand in front of you. So we're going to talk about how to take advantage of this dynamic moment. And we have brought in a seasoned e-commerce seller, Felix Leschno of Under Outfit, as well as our director of product, Donna Oren, to help us illustrate kind of some of the things that we're learning alongside our community and how to do just that. So before we go much deeper into it, I do want to remind you to drop questions in Q&A. These guys have amazing insights, and we're going to make sure we have time to answer some of those at the end. So Felix, I'd love you to introduce yourself. You have an incredible background in e-commerce. It'd be great for people to hear a little bit about where you've come from, and then what is Under Outfit.
Hi, hi everybody. So my name is Felix. I'm what you call a long-time entrepreneur, especially on the internet. I started in 2001 selling on eBay. I'm based in Tel Aviv, Israel, so I started selling Dead Sea cosmetics on eBay back in 2001. This business was scaling. I was among the first Israelis to become power sellers on eBay. After that, I went on and created my first real e-commerce store. Back then, Shopify didn't exist. So there was another platform was called OS Commerce. I don't know, maybe the veterans remember it. Created a store. Google was different, got a lot of organic traffic. Then it stopped one day and I needed to learn how to do advertising. And I learned how to do advertising with Google AdWords. Back then, this business scaled up, it became very big and profitable. And I was looking for something else to expand. Discovered affiliate marketing in 2003. Actually, the first company I became their affiliate was Zappos. They were in their beginning. And between 2004 and 2009, I became one of the biggest e-commerce affiliates in the US. Again, the arena was different back then. By 2009, I was working with the biggest retailers back then, Zappos, eBay, Musician Friend, HomeClick. I'm not sure most of them still exist. In 2008, the end of 2008 or beginning 2009, again, I don't remember, Google kicked out all the affiliates. Whoever was working back then, he probably remembers that. That was a really painful experience. I understood Google doesn't want affiliates, so I thought I'm going to start my own company and become a product owner. Created a company, a white label software company that became very successful, but it was very, very boring for me because knew that, been that, done that. And I wanted to see if I really can create a real company with employees, because up until then, it was only me and my wife working from home, creating these campaigns for all the partners. And it was fun. It was, you know, make money in your pajamas, all these stories about it. I was living that, but I'm a real entrepreneur, which means I'm a bit, I'm getting bored very fast, and I need to get to the next project. So I wanted to see if I can start a real company. So in 2010, I joined some friends, 2 friends. Actually, we started 4 friends, but eventually it's only 2. We created an edtech company back then. We started 4 people in a small room. Up until now, it's a big company. It's called Intango, 100 employees, offices in Tel Aviv and in New York. It's a global company. It's nothing to do with well, it does something with e-commerce, but it's an edtech company. It means we create technologies for the online advertising world. In 2020, not because of COVID, we decided to retire, and I decided to go back to e-commerce and to my old love and passion, and we started Under Outfit. So Under Outfit was founded in 2021, this year, in January.
Amazing.
That's it. It's
Awesome. That's a short version. That's awesome. I love it. You've got an amazing background in e-commerce and
done it all and seen it all. Yeah,
exactly. So Donna, can you introduce yourself a little bit about where you come from and what you do at 8fig?
Yeah, of course. That's a little hard to follow, but so I head up product over at 8fig, which, like Erica mentioned, is a funding solution with the added value of also helping sellers plan. So in that sense, it's a productivity tool. And before that, you know, I was involved in numerous startups, mostly in the fintech space. So very, very big passion for small and medium businesses, and a supply chain geek, a proud supply chain geek.
I love it. So Felix, we had a really awesome conversation a little over a week ago. And one of the main things our conversation circulated around was eliminating stockouts. And how did you do that? And also, why is it important? And I thought before we even get into like all the hows to fix it, why is it important, do you think, for entrepreneurs in the e-commerce space to eliminate stockouts? What do stockouts do to hurt e-commerce brands?
Well, this is a very painful point, actually. So when we launched our brand, we did some planning, of course, and we started, again, Under Outfit manufactures their own product. We design, we create everything from scratch. We manufacture, our manufacturers are in China and in South America. And by the first planning, again, when you launch, you have no idea what's going to be. But so you make your first order, and what happened to us, we start scaling up really fast. I mean, it was really beyond what we planned. So we stocked out like within 2 months. All the inventory planned for 6 months, within 2 months was sold out. We made another order, and we didn't raise any capital by then. And what happened? We scaled even more, and again, now the second order we made was planned for 6 months, and it was, again, we finished it within 2 months. And what happens when you stock out is more beyond that you're not selling your best sellers or something else. What we learned is that it's the most painful experience for an e-commerce operators, because what happens that, first of all, of course, you don't sell your best sellers, and that's obvious. But then if you have a lot of marketing campaigns, so your campaigns stop. And if you're familiar with working with Google and Facebook and all these platforms, when you stop your campaigns, they lose history, and it's very hard, and it takes time to restart them again. So this is one thing. But what else we discovered, again, I come from the performance marketing arena, and I never actually owned the product. So we learned it the hard way. My partners have experience, but I didn't. So what happens when you stock out is that, for example, your return rate goes up, because if we're in apparel, And if somebody wants to exchange the size, which happens a lot, and it's sold out, they're just going to return it. So from 7% return rate, we went to 14% return rate. And this is very, very painful. But what happens with that as well is the customer support system is starting to be overwhelmed, and everything is collapsing. Like it's like flying wheels around you. You get more returns and you have refunds, and customer support can handle that. And your entire brand is in danger. So it's very painful to be sold out. And if anything, we learned from that we're never going to be sold out again. We prefer to be aggressively stocking up, and maybe it's going to be more expensive a little bit, but stocking out is way more expensive than that, especially with the solution we have today in the market.
I love that. That is what we hear from sellers a lot. And Donna, I know you interact with sellers in our community every single day. Stockouts are a constant conversation. Can you highlight a little bit more about what you hear from other sellers in our community?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that Felix just touched on is so par for the course for sellers, and not just in 2021. This has always been a pain point, right? So by the time that they usually come to 8Fig for financing, for planning their supply chain more effectively, they're desperate to break that cash flow shortage cycle and that stock, like that inventory shortage cycle, so that they can finally meet demand as it is, instead of constantly being worried around, you know, the topic of affordability. So that actually sounds a little strange, I guess, to someone who's not in e-commerce, because on one hand, we saw a massive boom in the last 2 years, especially with the onset of the pandemic, but actually a third of all sellers actually are projecting that some of their sales might decline. But it's not because of a lack of demand, it's just because of the supply chain woes, which are causing delays. And of course, that cash flow crunch, which is preventing them from placing the orders that they can actually sell, and constantly being stifled by the orders that they can afford more so. So going out of stock causes that chain reaction that Felix described so well, which is, well, you know, much, much worse than just simply losing a sale to your competitor or just to someone who's lost interest. So you see diminished sales, of course, because you're losing your best sellers. You see shrinking market share because, you know, now you might have lost some loyalty. A client who was used to purchasing the same product from you, but now that it's out of stock, maybe they're going to discover a competitor, and maybe, you know, that competitor is consistently stocked. You know, they're unable to substitute a product, so they're actually just resorting to a return and a refund, which causes missed revenue. And then on top of that, if you're constantly scrambling to stock up again, you are paying more for freight, you're paying more for logistics just in order to get that stock to you and patch up those holes, which is, it's just not a healthy situation. So, you know, that all starts and ends with supply chain. Once you are reining in your supply chain, preparing well in advance and keeping yourself flexible, you are in a much, much, much better position to eliminate those stockouts once and for all.
Yeah, that's all very, very true. I'm sure that as you guys are listening, you're resonating with some of the experience of stocking out. And if I were to do a, like,
exactly.
Yeah, you guys know we're preaching to the choir right now. If we were to do a show of hands, you'd be like, yes, yes, also. But we want to talk about, Donna was starting to allude to some of the things that we know sellers can do to prevent stockouts. Before we do, though, I do want to set the stage a little bit. Felix, in like a couple of minutes, can you tell us about how you guys launched? Because you've had an extraordinary year, truly. You launched this year, you've scaled amazingly, and you've done it in the middle of a pandemic and a supply chain crisis. So I think it'd be cool just to hear about your launch strategy, and how you grew so quickly, and what some of your core brand strategies were before we even get into kind of some of our main points around how to avoid stocking out. Set the stage for us.
Sure. So let's start that you're talking about the pandemic. One of my partners, we are 3 partners. One of my co-founders, I never met in person. I'm in Israel, he's in the US. I never met him in person. We only had conversation through Zoom and Google Meeting. And the reason I partnered with these 2 co-founders is basically our branding strategy as well. I was looking to go back to e-commerce, and I said, I really want to create a brand, not a store. And I was looking for the best product I can have. And because I'm a marketing guy and I'm a customer experience guy, the psychology behind the customer and everything and all that. So when I met these two guys, that each one of them has 35 years experience in the industry under outfit is at sports and underwear and other garments. Again, this is the guys probably are behind many of the products many of us use, especially you guys in the US. My partners are behind all the brands. I don't want to say too many names, but it's Nike, Victoria's Secret, and name them. So when I saw this opportunity, and these guys were looking for an internet guy, I understood immediately. And our strategy from day one was the quality of the product, not just quality-wise and material-wise. I'm talking about fitting. We're talking about undergarments. It's things that people put first layer on the body. So everything was supposed to be perfect in a good price. And as many e-commerce entrepreneurs and operators know, the logistics is very important. So your connection to the best manufacturers and your relationship with them is so important. So all together in this package, somebody asked me about our branding strategy, and I said our branding strategy, and it's very cliche, but the branding strategy is the best product possible, because we're talking about a direct-to-consumer brand. When direct-to-consumer brand has, like, you can buy traffic, it's a channel to get to the customer, but you are targeting the second and the third purchase, not the first purchase, if you're building a brand. So our strategy was to create the best product for the best price. And in the way that we think about it, our goal is the second purchase. So everything we just use, let's say Facebook and Google and all these marketing channels, we just use them to get the customer to touch our product and feel it for the first time. The second time, and our data shows that, that's why we're scaling up again, it's once they touch a big percentage of them. I can say that we are just launched in January 2021. We have more than 25% repeat customers while we're scaling up. It means the product are good. So this is our branding strategy, the product itself. Again, it's over simplifying that, but it's more than that, of course. But eventually, direct to consumer, what it says, it's direct to consumer. Let the customer touch the product if it's good, and if your retention and email marketing and everything, all your connection to the customer after the first purchase are good, they'll come back. They'll come back because of the product mainly. So this is the strategy.
I love you taking us into this like multiple purchase, repeat purchase strategy. I know that for many of you, you have a very similar strategy, which makes this conversation about preventing stockouts even more critical. Yeah. Felix, we've seen you get ahead of this problem this year by planning your inventory and supply chain early. We've been happy to partner with you in that. But what we really appreciate about you is you saw the early trends of these selling out quickly, and you got ahead of it. You moved into proactive mode rather than reactive mode. Can you talk about what you did to scale this radically and prevent stockouts at the same time?
Yeah. So basically, if we connect to the stocking out and what you just said about our strategy about the second purchase. So if somebody try to exchange your product for a different size, first of all, it means they like the product. And if you don't have the next size because you're sold out, you're hurting your brand. If your branding strategy is the quality of the product, but then again, she can't exchange, it creates really a waterfall of bad experience. So again, for the first time that we were stocked out, we're not taking risks too many. We were planning very safely. And after the second time happened, while you're scaling up, and it's really painful. Again, you're not selling and everything else, but you're scaling up and then everything stops and people are complaining. We said, we're going to take some risk. And we understood that we need to raise capital. And I started looking in the market about how we're going to raise capital, because we really want to make bigger orders from our manufacturers. There's a lead time. We're working with very big manufacturers. It's not small companies. So the lead time, actually, we're competing with all these big brands on the lines and everything. So it takes time for every order to get to us, between 60 days, even with air freight. So we said we need money and we need to create bigger orders with these manufacturers, and we need to stock up everything in our warehouses in the US. And I was looking in the market and again, spoke with different companies. Eventually, we of course started working with 8fig, which was a completely different solution from anything else I saw in the market. And more than anything, I must admit, I was really connected that you guys understood the logistics part. It's not just the financial part, because the team I was talking to really understood the pains of the logistics, and everybody that works in e-commerce knows that the logistics are very, very hard, especially if you manufacture in China and there's freight and customs and everything that goes into it. And I really was connected. But not only that, the entire deal was different, was very flexible. And, you know, a lot of companies saw we were scaling up. Shopify saw we were scaling up. PayPal saw we were scaling up. They all offered their solution, because when people see somebody scaling up, they understand they need the financial. Again, your solution was completely different in the way you look at it, and completely different in the way the deal was structured. So because of you, we were able to stock up, and now we will not be able. We won't be sold out again. Hopefully.
Yeah. I want to actually share the growth chart that you shared with us. It's rendering just a little funny on my screen, but basically this is what we were showing of the chart you shared with us earlier this week, is so much of what we see happen with so many customers. You're stocking out, you drop in sales rather than increase. You get ahead of it again, you drop in sales. Once you're in stock, you're able to kind of execute all of the strategies that you have at your fingertips, from marketing to just continue to kind of nurture those repeat sales. Donna, Felix jumped in with 8fig, started using our growth planning tool. I think talking about our planning tool is really important, because one of the main things that we love to stress is planning ahead, which Felix did in a way that we see e-commerce sellers do too late. And you saw this trend, you jumped on that trend. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about our planning tool.
Yeah, so Felix sort of started alluding to it by saying that we were different in the sense that we got the logistics part. And so, yeah, all of our process is completely different. Usually a seller finds us when they're looking for financing. And then, you know, the first thing that they're told is, all right, tell us about your supply chain, which sometimes catches them off guard. But consistently, we're seeing the same feedback from sellers of, where has this tool been all of my e-commerce life? I needed this in order to plan more effectively and finally visually see, you know, where my pain points are, or like where my problems could arise. So for example, in what we're seeing now, this is called our line lab. This is really the heart of our product. This is where sellers spend time strategizing and, you know, just making all these plans for their what we call lines, but you might, you know, refer to them as batches or orders from your manufacturer. And then for example, right here, you can clearly see February is going to be probably kind of a tough month cash flow wise for this seller. So what happens after a seller creates this plan and then submits it to us is we create a perfectly customized cash flow plan just for them, meaning money in, money out, depending on sales pace for each individual product, so that the seller can do what we unofficially refer to as planning as if money were no object. So the champagne problem that Felix was experiencing, this surging demand, brand is exploding, everyone wants it, but I can't stay in stock. We see that all the time. And usually in order to rise above it, you're going to need a lot of capital and you're going to need it quickly in order to scale. But then other financing solutions are probably going to do some sort of, you know, not really database assessment of your recent income, and then not really allow you to grow, especially not explode with your brand. So what 8fig does is we're never going to tell you, okay, this is how much you qualify for based on your history or anything. So our assumption is always the seller knows best. The seller understands much, much better than we do the niche that they're operating in, their competition, their sales projections. All we do is validate against the lines that the seller creates on the platform. And then if we can validate, we can fund. If you can plan it, we can fund it. And that's exactly what Felix did. He created a really, really aggressive plan. He and his team, I should say, created a really aggressive plan. We had some back and forth, and then we were able to meet his projections at the level that he needed them to be, so that Stockouts could become a thing of the past and his brand could really live up to its potential. Now that flexibility that Felix mentioned is also really, really key to what we're doing here, because you can make a plan and it can be an aggressive plan, but sometimes reality doesn't necessarily align with that plan. And this could be something great, like you're selling through in 2 months instead of 6 months, like Felix experienced. Or it could be something that's not so great, right? Sales slow down. There's a new competitor in town. There's a container that's been stuck at the LA port for 6 weeks. Hashtag true story. So we're seeing those things constantly, and our sellers, they have the advantage of just logging in, changing whatever they need, and moving on with their life instead of letting it snowball on them, having to deal with repayments when they're not even making sales. All of those things are completely a thing of the past because of the emphasis that we put on planning and logistics, understanding the complexity of supply chains, that they never go as planned. And you need a solution that's just as dynamic as your supply chain and sales are for sure going to be.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And Felix, I know that probably played from our conversation. I know that played into your confidence and being able to kind of go big, because you went big in a way that I think your seasoned nature allowed you to. You knew you had to, but other sellers, that's terrifying. It's terrifying to take on capital. It's terrifying to take on that kind of risk. So kind of talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I can understand. It's very terrifying to create such big orders and have that much confidence in your brand. Again, anything can happen. And as anybody that works with Facebook now knows that something happened and Facebook is not as we expecting it. But right, the flexibility of the platform is one of its amazing features. So first of all, again, it is scary, but working with 8fig, first of all, this platform is amazing. And we actually had something yesterday. So we created our order based on different products. One of the products was selling slower than we anticipated. And it was very easy to log into actually, the team from 8fig was alerting us that they see there's a slowdown, which we see as well, but it was nice to see that somebody else is also seeing that, and created a new program for us. And it's very easy to log into the system and create your next plan and change these lines. And then you change the line because of your new needs. And for us, it was usually you get an email, it's going to be approved within 3 days. We got it within a few hours, but again, I'm not going to break it. It might take 3 days, but that's expected and that's fine. But this flexibility is very important. Plus the options to plan a year ahead. Most of the solutions on the market of funding inventory are usually very short term, 3 to 4, 5, 6 months. Yeah. With the scale and growing up like ours, we needed a plan for at least 9 months to a year. And this is also very important that, again, you're not taking all the capital at once. You do it based on these lines and you plan. If something changes, you either delete the line or change it and do it somehow differently, and that's fine. And yeah, this is very important.
I totally agree. Oh, go ahead.
It's risky and scary, but the system really helps you to reduce the stress.
Yes, which is really what we need in the world of e-commerce. With so many of us or sellers plan batch by batch. So and like Felix said, they're only funding one portion of their supply chain. What we encourage sellers to do is make sure every part of your supply chain is well funded. You don't want to have a bunch of inventory and not have money for marketing. You don't want to have money for marketing and you've invested it all there and your ads are running, but your inventory is stocked out. So you need to make sure you have a healthy cash flow across your entire supply chain, and you need adaptable tools. So some of our main encouragements to you guys, just in closing here, is to eliminate stockouts. You've got to think big. You've got to plan to the demand rather than what you have the cash necessarily to support, make a long-term plan, and then find partners that help you maintain a healthy cash flow and make sure that your inventory, you always have those alerts, you know exactly what's going on with your inventory, and you're getting ahead. You have to also constantly adapt. If your tools, your resources, and your mindset isn't constant adaptability, you will hit these places where you're trying to work a plan that is no longer the plan anymore. And so your plan should always be a living, breathing mechanism that's helping you scale rapidly. And we are seeing seller after seller live this story. We're so grateful, Felix, for your story. It's incredible to go from 0 to 7 figures in less than 6 months. We congratulate you on your success this year in the midst of everything going on. And we're really excited to support many of you in your journey as well. I know we're running out of time here for Q&A.
Yeah, so we're over time right now, so we're gonna have to cut it short. But if you do have questions, if you want to stick around for a little bit and anyone wants to ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A,
Perfect.
totally cool to do that. We love seeing the chat box light up.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, we appreciate you. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you, everyone. Thank you, Erica. And I love if you can plan it, you can fund it, but also got to be flexible because sometimes the plans don't reflect reality, which I'm sure we've all gone through, especially the entrepreneurs who are tuning in right now.